Hey, good evening, everybody. This is John Henry Soto here. Welcome to JHS Interviews. Tonight, I am excited. I have Patricia. I want to make sure I pronounce her name correctly. It's Alcivar, I believe. I'm going to ask her if that's correct. Uh, AKA Patty Boom Boom. She is a professional boxer. She's incredible, actually, an incredible athlete. I'm really excited to talk to her. So please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patty Boom Boom, Patricia Alcivar to the show. Patty!
Hi, how you doing?
So, good, I'm good. So, did I pronounce your last name Alcivar? Is that correct?
Yes, people. I remember when, as an amateur boxer, the announcer always made sure that it was either Alcivar or Alcivar. So either one is
Okay,
fine.
okay, good. I was like, I don't want to mess it up. So, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I know we had a little bit of a technical situation going on right beforehand. I'm glad actually you called in early. And that we got that resolved, so it's good. Um, there's a little bit of an echo going on right after my voice. For the audience, if you hear that, I apologize. I'll just so you know, we're dealing with technology here that hasn't been perfected yet, but I believe it will be now with this situation. So, first question I want to ask you is, how are you doing?
Um, Not too shabby. During these days, all the things going on in the world, I have to be thankful that I have my health and that I've been able to work, to help, to volunteer, to still train. So I'm thankful. I'm really doing great.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. And I was going to ask you about training because I know a lot of people during the time they're home, they're eating. Me, for one instance, I call it my COVID fat. So I got to resolve this COVID fat situation. But so you're still training and life as usual on that respect.
Again, even during these difficult days, my healthy outlet has always been running, training, and staying active. So I've been able to do that. And, it's funny because a lot of people have gained, some weight during the COVID times. And I've actually, I've actually lost like 10 pounds. I'm on fighting weight. Like I'm 112, 13 pounds. So I'm ready to fight, actually.
That's amazing. You have a lot of people right now watching this going, "Oh Lord, I can't believe this." All right, that's fantastic. So your fighting career started how long ago? Was this something that
Um,
you've always wanted to do?
Well, a lot of people don't know, but women's boxing in New York City became legal in 1995. So I started boxing in 1997. So I started boxing really young at like 16 years old. So I've had a pretty long boxing career.
I had no idea that it just became legal in 1995. That's amazing to me.
Yes, it's so in theoretically it's pretty new, especially in New York, and that's why I believe that it has taken so long for it to be really accepted as a legitimate sport, being that it's been a male dominated sport for such a long time.
Right, right. Yeah, and it's boxing is one of those because you call it a sport, right? But it's really the only sport where it's a little bit different than the other sport because you're not playing a game. Like people play a game. They play baseball, they play football, they play basketball. You don't play boxing. You you have to fight, and it's a completely different sport onto itself because it's so much technique and mindset and physical abilities. It's just an overall thing. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree. Boxing is the only sport where you don't play, and I believe, having boxed for such a long time, that a big percentage of it is mental. Definitely very physical by all means, but if you're not fully focused and not truly mentally there, you've lost the fight even before you enter the ring. So it's definitely, and it's one of the sports that's why I've been so attracted to, and it just pulls me because it challenges you in every way, mentally, spiritually, physically. So it's definitely a unique sport that way.
It really is. And, when you're in a fight, I heard once Evander Holyfield explain, like when you're really in the middle of a real brawl, that it's sort of like a dream state. Like he explained that he's sort of like, he knows he's doing it, he knows what he has to do, but it's almost like he's in a dream of some sort. What's the experience for you being, really being in there?
It's almost like a light switch. Right before you enter the ring, a switch has to go on, and you do really transform into something and someone else.
Wow.
Because if you see me, which you're seeing me, you would never in your wildest dreams think that that I'm a fighter. So
Right.
the mentality, the whole thing, just is a switch that goes on, and you become a different person. And the mentality is just different. And your mentality has to, outside of the ring, I'm a very compassionate, very caring person. But once you go into the ring, then there's someone that's challenging all of that. And you have to, hone your everything into that. And you can't let that person take away your dream.
Yeah, wow. So it really is a switch, because you do have to turn that off, because you don't want to take that aggression out of the ring, regardless of whether you win or lose, it's still a high. How do you come down after a fight?
Well, once you're once you're in the ring, it's pure adrenaline, and, you've trained, 6, 8 weeks or even more for that one moment. I have never thrown a punch outside the ring. Everything I do is inside the ring. Once I leave that ring, I become myself again. And, I do enjoy being an athlete. And, aside from running, aside from boxing, I do love running. I love mountaineering. So I get my adrenaline fix that way as well.
Yeah. So you really do have to then leave it in the ring, because it is such a a sport where somebody's out for blood, and even though there's technique and there's a skill involved, you're still in the middle of this really heavy adrenaline. Do you ever find it difficult to go into the ring? How do you get the motivation to actually, when you've been training and now it's the day of the fight, and you have an hour before you got to get in the ring? What's motivating you to do that at that point?
Well, I think that with everything that I do, if it's boxing, if it's mountaineering, if it's running, you have to attach a special meaning to it in order to get motivated. And I'm very thankful that I've always been self-motivated. Boxing, especially women's boxing, is not a lucrative sport. I do it, and I've done it for the challenge, for the self-challenge. And I also like to defy the odds. Not a lot of people very close to me and in general would think that I can do something like that. So I like to defy the odds, and I like to prove to myself that I can. So that in itself is self-motivation.
It's really amazing achievement. I wanted to. I know I can show some of these photos because you sent them to me. So, but I wanted to show people that this is what it takes right here. I mean, when I saw this photo, I was like, wow. I mean, that is really a champion right there. So, I mean, congratulations. Two-time Golden Globe. I was gonna say, Golden Glove. Um, So one of the interesting things, and the reason I actually know who you are was I was at home one night. This was years ago. This was I don't even know, maybe 6 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago. And I was watching Broadway boxing,
Mhm.
and I was watching the fight, and it was you, and there was another young lady there, and I'm watching. I got just very invested as I do with sports and films and music, whatever. I just get I got very invested, and I'm watching this fight, and you were clearly winning on all my scorecards. It wasn't like so. At the end of the fight, I was just waiting for them to make their announcement, and for some reason, it went the other way. And I
Yes.
remember being like, and I was outraged. And I normally don't, I normally don't get that crazy, but I was like outraged. I was like, what the hell? And I was so upset that I went onto, I think it was Twitter or something, and I wanted to actually find you and tell you that this was like BS. And I remember you kind of said, what did you think of it? And you asked me, and I told you, and we had a little interaction and stuff. But what when that happens, you know, how do you take something like that? That's just so frustrating.
I think boxing, one of the things that attracts me to boxing is how realistic it is to things that happen in your life. Life is unfair. Boxing is unfair. Things don't always go your way. I mean, I trained for that by like I do for any fight, for anything that means a lot to me. I put my heart and soul into it, and it didn't go my way. And I had my whole family there. I had coworkers. I mean, it was clearly my fight, and it didn't go my way. And to get up from something like that was really difficult. But again, it motivated me to work harder. But that's one of the things about boxing, that it is a very unfair sport. And I think it's always been interesting to me how it attracts me even more to it, thinking that, I'm going to change it, and I'm not going to change it, but it doesn't deter me from giving it my all, giving it 100%.
Right. Well, I think you did change it, and I think you're part of the foundation of the industry of the sport as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen. So you've accomplished a lot. I mean, I wanted to actually just to read a little bit, because I was reading this, and I mean, I have read it before, but when you read it again, and I know that there was some things in your life that were difficult early on, and you really persevered, and like you said, you're self-motivating, which is really, for life, you need to be self-motivating, and for boxing, and for life in general. But you're a two-time New York City Golden Glove Champion, USA National Champion, New York Metro Champion, Western States Champion, and the first female ever to be voted and win Athlete of the Year as voted by the United States Olympic Committee. I mean, what the hell? I mean, you are extremely accomplished, and you have definitely changed the industry for the better. So, and you're Latina. Yes. So, what are you looking for in the sport right now? Are you looking to train others, or are you looking to continue boxing?
I am I'm very proud of all the accomplishments in boxing. I am thankful that I am considered one of the pioneers for the sport.
That's the word I was looking for, pioneer.
Yes. it's in the history books. So when, Women's Month comes around, my name always pops up as someone being in the history books for, being the first female ever to win Boxer of the month and of the year in boxing. So there's something that no one can ever take away from me. There's a lot of, times where, if you lose, you lose, and that's just part of life, but no one can ever take those accomplishments away. And that's something I'm very grateful for. Now, like I said before, boxing is not women's boxing is not a lucrative sport, but nonetheless, I feel like there's unfinished business. I would like to retire in a couple of years from the sport and just focus on, my mountaineering. I love to do a lot of things at one time, but I would like to, retire in about a couple of years and then just leave and have no regrets. The one thing I hate having is regrets. And I feel like I have, just a tiny bit more left, but, we'll see. Doing just like life, the world is under unpredictable times. And this has been an amazing opportunity for me to, to help others, volunteer at food pantries, work as an EMT, help at hospitals. And that's just another face of being an athlete. You're supposed to give back, and that makes you a better person. So there's still a lot to do.
Yeah, well, that's very, very amazing of you to do that as well. Now I know you're mountaineering. I've seen these photos of you on top of really high places, and I'm like, I mean, that's gotta be. I went to this is a silly story, but I went once to Montana with family. It was like for a wedding, and my wife and my wife's family, and we were climbing. It was like this little mountain. Now from the bottom, it didn't look that big. I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, we can climb up there. Halfway through, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna die. This is where they find a little Puerto Rican man up here in Montana on the mountain, because it was really hard. I was just completely exhausted by the time I got to this little mountain that nobody would climb for, for competition. You know what I mean? But what got you so interested in that?
Well, in that picture that you showed, that was a result of intentional headbutt, and I had 6 stitches on my left eye, and I had to take some time off because if you come back too soon, that will reopen. Right. So I have always
here.
Yes.
Wow.
So I've always loved the great outdoors. I find them very healing, very therapeutic, very detoxifying. So I'm an extremist. So I went from hiking to going up to Utah and climbing my first Alpine mountain in the winter at 12,000 feet for my birthday. And I loved it. A few months later, I went to my first expedition in Ecuador, and I climbed 4 out of 5 mountains, high altitude mountains, in 10 days, and I loved it. I think that it was very similar to the challenges that you get in boxing. You just, you put one foot in front of the other, and you just don't give up until you get to the summit. And once you get to the summit, I feel like, like I can touch the sky, and it's like a really spiritual connection that I have with the creator of the earth. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. I decided in the last 2 years to climb the 7 summits of the world, which is the highest peak in each continent, and it also includes Everest. So So I like to be the best at, at whatever I set my mind to. So if, God willing, I accomplish that, I would be the first Latina from New York City to do that. So, that's another incentive. I'm very proud of my roots. I'm very proud of being Latina. I come from, Colombian parents from Barranquilla, Colombia. So, that's definitely a big goal and one of the things that I focus on.
So preparing for climbing is probably something that you almost the same type of preparation for boxing, except maybe you're not sparring, but um, it is definitely a rigorous because you do have to kind of train for something like that. Like, um,
Absolutely.
now one of my biggest and I have no idea, but when you're climbing these, let's just say a smaller one, there's 7, right?
There's
Uh,
there's seven, yeah, there's 7 summits.
so what's the average time that someone should take to climb? Let's just say, I mean, let's pick the biggest one, right? Everest. Well, how long does it take if somebody's just going at a normal pace? I mean, not a. I mean, I have no idea. Is that
Well, here's honestly, the average person out there wouldn't know, but the biggest thing with the high altitude mountains is the altitude. Everest, for example, is at 29,000 feet, and the biggest thing for people is acclimating. The anything above anything above 15,000 feet, you have to acclimate because many people die from pulmonary edema or cerebral edema because of the altitude. So you have to gradually acclimate to the conditions. And climbing Everest, in order for you to safely climb that and acclimate properly, would take about 8 to 10 weeks. So it's a big.
oh my God. I'm so off. I have no reality on any of it, so I'm thinking to myself, it's like,
I mean, and because here in New York we live at sea level, it's really hard for someone like me to do that. That's why accomplishing something like that would be an amazing achievement from someone from New York City. And my goal is to also educate people about the enormity of something like this. It is a huge challenge physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that's why, just like boxing, I'm so attracted to it, because I would be defying the odds as well.
Right. And it's funny, I mean, people need to really be able to be self-motivating and be able to challenge themselves. You've taken it a little bit more extreme, but it's nevertheless a challenge for you. Like for me, it would be like not eating another cup of ice cream tonight. That's like my if I make that, I'm happy. But when you're setting these challenges up to yourself, what's the other? Do you have another motivating factor behind it?
I through these defying challenges, I inspire myself, and in the process, I inspire other people to do the same. In addition to my jobs, one of the things I absolutely love and I find rewarding is coaching other athletes, young athletes. I have been on my own in New York City since I was 15 years old, and I always wanted to have a role model, a positive role model, and I didn't have any realistic role models to look up to. And I made a promise to myself that if I had the opportunity to do that for others, I definitely would. So that's definitely an incentive for me. I have coached many young women. I used to coach a program called Run for the Future, and I coached, and it was the absolutely best experience ever. I coached 3 years in a row, 20 senior high school women that never ran a block in their lives. And they went from not being able to run one block to completing a 5K in 8 weeks. So,
Wow.
so through my challenges, through my accomplishments, that's definitely something that in the back of my head, I always hope that someone is watching and is somehow inspired to do the same, or not exactly do the same, because I know that it's a little extreme, but to get the courage to move forward with their dreams as well.
Right, because I mean, I think everyone has their Mount Everest. It's like
Exactly.
something that they want to actually achieve. Like I'm not doing Mount Everest, but I do have a mountain that I would like to but you know what? It's funny. Those challenges, like you mentioned. Like me, for instance, like I never met my dad. Like I never actually physically met my biological dad. I had my grandparents and my grandpa was raised me and stuff. But one of the things that I always said to myself was like, if I get the opportunity to be a dad, I'm gonna be the best freaking dad ever.
Exactly.
And sometimes you look back and you think, I'm kind of grateful in a sense that I had that experience because I'm able now to be a really good dad to my two kids, and I'm able to inspire other people to be really good dads, especially, and not to generalize Puerto Rican men, but especially I want Latino men to make sure that they take responsibility for their kids and become good dads. You don't have to be it's not it shouldn't be a grand thing to be there for your children, right? But unfortunately, it becomes this thing. So for me, I think that some of these challenges that we both ran into are really a blessing for others and for ourselves. We're able to give back. Um, so you said 15?
Yes, and going on what you just said, I didn't have the best parents growing up, and I left an abusive home when I was 15 years old, and that in itself is an accomplishment to be able
My God,
to be
for
able to
real.
survive in New York City. And I think fear, we can use fear either in a positive way or in a negative way. I use fear to my advantage because I was petrified to end up a pregnant teen, or with drugs, or just with the wrong crowd,
Right.
and that kept me on the right path. But being 15 in New York City is definitely a very scary experience, but it definitely helped me become the person that I've been wanting to be.
Wow, that is incredible. We have a comment here from Roberto, says it's beautiful. Thank you, Roberto. It is a beautiful story, an amazing accomplishment. So I wanted to this is gonna be a completely silly question because that's what I do. But when you get to the summit, how do you get down?
Yeah, many of the a big percentage of deaths and accidents happen on the way down, because you give it 100% climbing up, and then you relax and you think like it's all over, but it's not. You still have to come down. And
Oh my,
I've taken a few nasty, crazy spills coming down because I'm tired. I gave it everything going
yeah.
up, and now I have to come down. So you did all that work coming up, and I think it's even harder, a lot harder coming down.
Oh
So
my God.
it's not over
I was
until
hoping that
the
there was
very
like
end.
yeah, I thought there would be like an elevator or an escalator up there or something. But wow, that is amazing. She has a huge heart, helps a lot of people. Thank you, Roberto. I totally agree. So moving on to like future endeavors and helping others and what kind of messages? One of the things I like to ask my guests are, obviously you give so much already, but I like to kind of give advice to people or have the guests give like some type of advice or something for young people or anybody really, but that they can actually take with them and kind of build on that. Coming from your experience with your, in your inspiration. Do you have something that you tell someone if you're trying to console someone or help them see their potential?
Oh, absolutely. And and I say this all the time to my friends, my family, you know, to use exercise, as a healthy outlet, especially during these times, the great outdoors is very healing. And I think that once you do that, you're giving a great gift to yourself, the gift of health and activity. The great outdoors is very healing. So, and when you do that, that propels you to do other great things, and other great things means helping out. I mean, during these times, during the pandemic, I always wanted to volunteer and to help, and I always used to say, "Oh, I just don't have time" and stuff like that. But I found time now, and our one of the biggest things that we can do is help others. So those are my two biggest advices: to help others and to stay active and use the great outdoors as a healing, gift to yourself.
I love it. And why do you think? Because health and fitness seems to be one of those things that everyone puts on the back burner, or they don't have time for. They also just don't want to. They just I don't want to. And you can't force somebody to. But why do you think from early on we're not more inspired to just enjoy the outside and be more healthy?
I think that is just because people don't make it a priority. Like, when you make it a priority, then it's going to get done. During the pandemic, these times, the movie theaters, the malls were closed and everything, and people had no choice. They're like, okay, where am I going to go? I have no choice. I'm going to go walk in the park, or else I'm going to go crazy. So people didn't start doing it until it just became a necessity. So if just like to me, going out for a run, going out hiking is a necessity. It's a priority.
Right.
Just like brushing my teeth, just like having my cup of coffee in the morning, it's a priority. So if you make yourself and your health a priority, then it will be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that people just don't really make the time for it to incorporate it into their daily life, and because of the workaday world, I think people are stressed out by work and whatever else they're doing. This whole pandemic situation, as horrible as it is, has been sort of a reset, I think, for a lot of people. And I think people are starting to evaluate their lives and maybe take a little bit more stock in what they have to offer the world. And I think fitness is something that's coming up. Like I make jokes, obviously, because I'm home and I gained a few pounds, but I worked in the health club industry for a long time also, and I love health and fitness. But it's one of those things where people just don't, like you said, they don't put the time in, they don't make it. It's not just even a priority, but I think that they don't even feel like they have the time, and people don't realize that if you put in a good 30 minutes a day, it doesn't even have to be every day. You're on your way to a much better heart, and you're gonna live a better life at the end. The last 25 years, you're not gonna be popping pills and trying to go to going to doctors and stuff. Do you think about things like that, like helping people understand, giving talks about health and fitness and priorities and stuff like that?
Yes, I definitely, it's definitely something that I do. I was a few years ago. I was hired by the U.S. Embassy to be a female ambassador of sports, and I was actually flown to Iran to a place called Tajikistan, Dushanbe, and
Wow.
I gave lectures for 14 days. It was one of the best rewarding experiences to be able to educate and just be an example of health and fitness to others who don't really understand the importance. So yeah, like a little bit later down the road, I mean, if I could do that full time, that would be amazing. But that's
Right.
definitely something that I would love to do.
And it's so needed, because here you are being flown to Iran, right? And yet here in America, we have so much, the obesity rate kills more people a year, and heart disease and diabetes. My mom, actually, my whole family have diabetes. I mean, my grandparents, my mom, uncles, aunts, my cats. If I had a cat, we had diabetes. And it's almost, and I think about 8 or 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with pre-diabetic.
Oh my gosh.
So I just changed my diet. I asked the doctor, "Can I change my diet?" And he was like, "Well, you can. I don't know. Your whole family has it, so But I did. I changed my diet, and within like about 6 months, I had no signs of it at all. Like no sign. And till this day, I have no diabetes sign.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I don't know if people don't understand the importance of nutrition, diet, but it's also mindset. And you talked a little bit about that earlier, about boxing and having that mindset and that strong ability. Talk a little bit about mindset. Not just through boxing and climbing, but through just life alone. Like, what's your mindset on a daily basis? That's a
Um,
loaded question, right?
again, I have to say this, and I'm not trying to force my religion on anybody. It's just something very personal to me. And I can tell you that I would not be where I am if it wasn't for my faith. Being alone in New York City and surviving at 15 years old, I've always felt that someone from above was taking care of me. So a big I owe a big part of my outlook in life and my motivation internally is my faith. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I pray, and I dedicate some time to my spirituality, to meditation, to prayers, and I think that is the way I start. Is a good start to my day. So I think that's the first part. I think if you believe in a higher power and you work on your spirituality, everything else will fall into place. Things might not be perfect, but things have a funny way of working out, and I think that is a big secret to everything in my life, the self motivation. Because people always say, "Well, how do you find the motivation and the strength and the courage?" Because a lot of what I do does take a lot of courage, and I think again is just a big part of it is just my faith and my spirituality, and everything else just happens to fall into place.
Yeah, I mean, having a strong spiritual connection is like, to me, such a necessity just day to day life. Like, if you wake up in the morning and all you're thinking about is what you have to confront, it's so much easier if you can confront that through a spiritual faith, or through even a philosophy or something that you can attach yourself to that's higher and bigger than you. It's so much, it's so important. So that totally makes sense to me. And it's something that unfortunately I think is being slowly taken away in some weird way, because schools really frown upon certain things when you talk about God, or um, and unless it's a Catholic school, I hope they don't do that there. But if it's a religious school or something, but you know, children are so important to like what's going to happen in the next, like next 100 years, and if they don't have a spiritual connection to something, they need to believe something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really a scary situation. Is that something you talk to a lot of people, obviously, but like when you're talking to really young people, have you ever gone there, like to the spiritual connection, like believing in a higher power?
Yes, and I've I am working on a book.
Oh, good.
It's been a long time coming, and hopefully, within the next year, it will be completed. But it's definitely something. Another thing that another goal that I've been working on for like forever, and I think that it would be my way of telling my story, and in the same way inspiring and helping others that may have been going through difficult times. I mean, it's life. You go through difficult times, but yes, no matter what your age is, just to believe in a higher power. I don't say that you have to be Catholic, Christian, Muslim, or whatever. You should believe in a higher power, and that is like the beginning of
Right.
your spiritual connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I had an argument with somebody who was an atheist because I said, "Well, you don't believe in anything, but you do believe that there is nothing. So you believe in something. So that means so there is a belief in system in you." He got mad at me. He blocked me on Facebook. But so yeah, because and your challenges that you went through at the age of such a young age to be alone in New York City, having that higher power looking over you and having that faith that you have, definitely was a big factor to do it. I mean, it's I'm one of these guys that I believe that I don't believe that God goes like, okay, this is for you. I believe that we all have our own innate abilities to make things happen for us as well. We've been given that power and that ability to do that. So I do think that there's more responsibility, within each individual person to make things better for themselves as well. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge when you're talking to young people, because they want to just believe that something good should happen to them for the sake of, like you said, boxing is really unfair. You know what I mean? It's like, it's what are you gonna do? It's like you didn't get the decision when you won that fight. And I bet you go back to that fight and count the actual, you would win.
I mean, I've seen replays of it. It was televised. Like you said, it was televised on Broadway boxing. It was also it was one of the first fights that was televised on the Yes Network.
Wow.
So yeah, it definitely, it got televised in many different places, and it broke barriers as well. And it was a shame at the outcome, but
I didn't mean to dwell on that part. I was more talking about the perseverance of a life, now you mentioned earlier, you said something about EMT. Like you help EMTs, like how do you do that?
EMT, it stands for Emergency Medical Technician.
Right.
So I am, usually myself and a partner pick up patients. I
didn't know you were that. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I work. I've worked freelance part-time for Long Island Jewish Hospital in Forest Hills.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, so we get calls from through the hospital for patients, and we transport them. We're the first responders, so we usually need to treat the patients, and it could be during the pandemic we had people that couldn't breathe, people that had fever, and and a whole list of things.
Yeah.
So it's definitely another rewarding job.
How is New York right now? Like, what's the overall? I mean, I'm from New York. I'm from originally from the Bronx. I lived in Manhattan. I lived in Queens actually. I lived in Sunnyside, Queens, when I got married. And I love New York. I love New York. To me, is my home. It's where I grew up. It's what I know. And I've been out of New York now for about 8 years,
Oh
and
wow.
it seems pretty interesting what's happening right now in New York. Um, are you scared? I mean, I know you can fight, so
I'm definitely concerned and nervous, just because still nobody knows 100% of how this virus works. And people seem to be letting their guard down a little bit, so I'm definitely concerned. Right now, New York City is in a good place. We're not the epicenter anymore. Florida is. And in the past couple of days, we've had zero new cases. So we're on the right track. Now, we are the biggest city in the world, and we have people traveling from the outside in. So there's definitely a lot of things that can happen in the next few months. And then, we have the potential second wave. So yeah, definitely still concerned and nervous, and, still taking a lot of precautions. So, we can only honestly hope for the vaccine to come a lot sooner than later.
hmm. So let me ask you a little bit about your your process, and then we're almost at 46 minutes. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about your process on a fight, because I'm a big boxing fan. I love boxing, and when you're training with with your trainer, with your team, how many how many people do you normally have around you to actually get you prepared for a fight?
Um, Usually I have two. Now with things the way are working in the sports world, three. So a conditioning coach, a trainer that oversees the boxing, the sparring, and the training, and then a sports psychologist. That I must say that in the last few fights, I've had a sports psychologist that made the biggest difference ever. I sometimes as focused as you want to be, sometimes you let the external stuff get to you,
Hmm.
and I've always wanted to perform to the best of my ability. So for the fight that I won the New York State title, my title belt, I did see a sports psychologist. I told her exactly what I wanted to do. I told her that I wanted to perform to the absolute best of my ability. And, that was our focus. And for the first time for that fight, for that title fight, I had tunnel vision. There was only standing room. People were yelling to the top of their lungs, and I heard nothing. All I saw was my opponent, and I was like,
Wow.
my goal tonight is to win that New York State title. And that's what I did. So,
Wow. I love that. Wow. Um, so yeah, because I mean, it refocuses you, and you're able to really hone in on what it is that
yeah,
you want
listen,
without.
I've never been shy about asking for help when I need it. I think that it takes humility to be able to realize when you need help. So, I said to my coach, this is what's bothering me. I need something more. If I'm going to win this title, I know that I can do a lot myself, but I just need something to help me, like, just, focus. And that was like a piece that was missing, and through, certain relaxation techniques, talking and things like that, I was able to really, bring out the best that I had for that night. And, it was definitely a positive outcome. And I definitely recommend it to any athlete.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that when you're in that position, because all the training and everything else, it stays outside the ring. Now it's all the work you've put in and all the people helping you. Now it's just you and your opponent. So having that tunnel vision is so important. You talked about mindset. Is intimidation like such a big deal in boxing?
Again, I was the least intimidating person in female boxing. I on purpose got all dolled up, put makeup on for the weigh-in and everything. So I was the least intimidating fighter you can possibly see. But other definitely my other opponents thought that was like, a big deal, and, trash talking. I never trash talk to my opponents, never. So that's not my technique, but it seems to be, like the thing for other boxers for sure.
Right. I mean, I love it when it doesn't work. It's like I'll go on YouTube and watch the trash talkers get beat up.
Listen, my first fight ever as an amateur, I looked like I was 10 years old. I came out and I fought at a Catholic school here in Queens, and people, instead of cheering for me, they were like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna get hurt," and I'm not kidding you. I fought this girl. Her last name was Barboza, and she had recently been released from prison. And she had a scar across her face.
Of course.
And yes, really. And I knocked her out in the first round. So
wow.
Appearances are deceiving.
That's right. Frank says a great strategy. I'm thinking that the putting on the makeup and being all that actually might be a psychological. They're looking at it's all made out.
I mean, it's a little strategic, and the other part is because I'm in such a male-dominated sport that I don't want that to take away from my femininity. So just because I'm a boxer, I don't have to look like a boxer. So maintaining my femininity has always been very important to me. And all the sports that I participate, the mountaineering, the climbing, and stuff like that, is things that that guys do. But I'm a female, and I need to look like one.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So before we wrap up, I want tell us a little bit about what you have in the horizon. I know that we're in this current situation where things are still a little bit up in the air. But what are you currently working on?
Listen, if I think we don't have all the time to talk about the things that I'm working on. So, personally, I would love to go back to school and, finish my education in nursing. That's one of the things that I would love to do. Athletically, my goal is to climb those 7 summits. I have 3 down. I've done Kilimanjaro, Elbrus, and Aconcagua, and I have 4 left. Yes, I have 3 of the 7 summits done. So
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, I have 4 to go. So I need to do that. I need to finish my book. I would love to, at the end of this project, Climbing the Seven Summits, it's called Climbing for a Dream. I would like to build a foundation for for young athletes that are in a bad situation, and I would like to educate others about the great outdoors, about climbing. So and I would like to win a world title. So there's
Wow.
definitely a lot of things that I have on my. I think it's more than a bucket list. Bucket list of things that you hope to one day, and no, these are things that I absolutely must do.
Mm.
So, yeah, those are
Yeah.
things that I'm
Wow.
currently working on.
Well, I tell you, after speaking with you, there's no doubt in my mind that you are very, very easily can do those things. You have a tremendous mindset and strength. Um, it's incredible. I just want to somebody just wrote float like a butterfly sting like a bee. Okay, thank you, Sean. And Pack Russ is saying, where's Jack or pup? What? I'm not sure what that
Oh,
means.
Jack, they want to see. This is my
Oh, okay.
Can you see
Yeah,
him? There's Jack. Hi, everybody.
Jack's like, who? Oh man. So Patty, thank you so much for being on. This has been such a pleasure. It's an amazing.
Thank
I
you.
feel like we could have a whole conversation on just climbing because it's like you could climb four already or three already, right? And you've got
Three.
four more to go. So I hope you come back again and definitely enlighten us with where you are in your journey. It's an amazing journey. Anyone interested, please, there's her website right there at the bottom, and follow her on also social media. She's got a tremendous journey and just a great person and a great humanitarian. So, Patty, thank you so much for being on. Don't just hang up just yet. I'm going to be with you in a second. I'm just going to end the show and I'll be right back. But thank you so much. You are
Thank you, John.
my pleasure. Oh man, that was amazing. So she's growing up in the Bronx and just seeing her right now speaking the way she speaks. I grew up with a lot of people that kind of look like us, and unfortunately, there's a stigma in the Latino race that we behave certain ways. And one of the things that I really focused on is how we are like so powerful and incredible beings, and she's an incredible spiritual being, helping so many people, and she's going to help millions of people. I just feel it, and I'm grateful that she took the time to be here with us. So thank you again, Patty. Everyone who actually watched, thank you so much for being on. If you like these interviews, please subscribe to my channel, like it, hit the little bell so you get notifications, and I will see you all again tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I have Sean Manuel is going to be on the show. He is a Beatles historian, and we're going to be talking Beatles and music and a whole bunch of other amazing things. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. And as always, peace.